And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, back with another AFLW review. The finals have come, they have gone. We have a premiere, and I cannot wait to discuss this. This is going to be so much fun because I'm going to do a little bit of tooting my own horn. I called both the men's and the women's in my preseason, so I have to say it was fantastic when the final siren went, and I was again proved correct that at the preseason, I know who was going to win. I know, I'm sorry. Normally, I don't do that, but I had to just for fun. I double checked and made sure I did indeed call both the men's and the women's. I know at the expense of my Swans in the men's, but in the women's, it was fantastic to see the premieres. We will not discuss it just in case you haven't seen it. I know you probably have, but let's jump into it. Jump to my co-hosts. We will save one for the end. More is because I know of how excited she is. We will first hop on and see one of my great friends from South Australia, Miss Jade. Jade, great to see you.
You too, Donnie. Thank you for having me. I feel like it's been a while. I also haven't done a podcast in a very long time. I think the last time I did one was when I was on with you. So you know, I'm a little fresh here, so be kind to me.
It
Um,
is perfectly fine, Jade. You were
but that
fantastic when you were on.
uh, thank you, thank you. But your preseason prediction, that's very impressive. Getting
I
both.
I thought it was fascinating at the end because it was also fun. So and then we got to do it. One of my favorite North fans. Plus, I got to give her some raps. This young lady is doing some great things. The debut on YouTube TV of Kanga TV, the host, the fantastic that is Miss Marnie Cohen. Marnie, great to see you.
Hi, Donnie. So good to see you. Hi, JD.
Hi.
And as per usual, always fantastic as per usual. Loving Kanga TV. It is absolutely fantastic. It is growing in leaps and bounds. I cannot wait to see where it goes in the future. Let's jump right into it, ladies. The finals have come, they have gone. We will discuss all of the rounds all the way through the grand final. And like I said, Miss Marnie will enjoy talking about the finals, especially with how the final game of the year turned out for her beloved North Melbourne Kangaroos. So we'll start with you, Marnie. I know that the Raps are high because your North Melbourne Roos have come through the finals and are now premiers of the AFLW. Your thoughts on the finals as a whole and how wrapped are you for your girls? They are premiers of this particular season.
Oh, it was perfect. Wouldn't change a thing. Nah, look, it was a great final series. It was a very entertaining final series as well. Um, Obviously that game against Port Adelaide and Hawthorn, it was the biggest comeback in AFLW history. I mean, I think everyone was on the edge of their seats while they watched the whole way through. I think there's a couple issues is probably the wrong word, but there's a couple of sticking points for a lot of fans that I think the AFL will need to look over and look to iron out. The first thing is, why was North Melbourne and Port Adelaide scheduled at 3 o'clock last Saturday afternoon in 36-degree Melbourne heat at Icon Park? I was sitting there outside and I was sweltering. So as the players, I can only imagine they would have been just baking in the heat, and they have a really good attitude towards it. Bella Eddie and I do previews for all of the North AFLW games, and she had a great attitude about it. She said, "If we don't care, we want to be a team that can play anywhere and win anywhere," and that's exactly what they did. They backed it up against Brisbane in the grand final the following week, but it's a head scratcher. Like, that just doesn't seem
Mhm.
like a responsible thing to me. And then the second thing is that the grand final was scheduled at Icon Park on Saturday night. It sold out. There was 12 and a bit thousand people there, and you wonder what the crowd would have looked like had we had it at Marvel. Now, I understand that the decision to schedule the AFLW grand final at night clashed with the Supercross event that was at Marvel already, but the AFL own that ground. So if they are really, I kind of feel like they're half in, half out at the moment. Elements of what they do make me feel like they're serious about growing the competition, and then other elements of it make me feel like they're not. And so it's just sort of like, I think they need to make the decision to commit wholeheartedly or stick to something and just go with it and stick to their guns, because they flip flop way too often and they make too many changes on the fly. So look, if those are my only two gripes out of a final series, and that's fine. Obviously North were premiers and we finished off a perfect, just about perfect season on top, as the girls deserve. So all in all, I don't really have anything to complain about, do I?
No, I mean you can. I mean there's plenty to. In fact, when we go through later, I will have some fun with a couple of topics on that one. So, Jade, your thoughts on the finals? I know that your Crows again, perennial finals team, played well, just fell a little
Yeah,
bit short in a couple of games.
yeah, yeah. I feel like unfortunately that seems to be, what it's been like in recent times for us. Like we are quite dominant throughout the season, and we've made like five consecutive prelims. Um, and yeah, to lose again um, after last season as well, it's just it's hard to describe it because it's not really disappointing because we're still a very dominant team and we perform and we do a lot of things right. But you know, like based on our time within the competition, obviously been there since the inception, you you can't really complain too much. Like what they've managed to achieve in that time is just unreal. They've been a fantastic side, done so much. Like we've really been able to keep the group together as well. There's some um, amazing, incredible um, people on that team that just keep it rolling. Um, but it is disappointing to, be so good throughout the season and just fall away in those games that matter. And I don't really know what it is. Like I obviously pay close attention to, um, the Crows more than any other AFLW team. Um, and I can't really pinpoint what exactly it is. Like, I think we've got a lot of things in the right place. It's just comes down to that pressure not being there in the parts of the game that matter, really. So, yeah, disappointing. Like, obviously, proud of them. Like, I would put Crows, Brisbane, and North as like the three powerhouse teams of the league that are, consistently up there, consistently producing good footy. But there is such a disparity in the league between those top teams and those bottom teams. And as Marnie was saying, you know, is the AFL committed to actually growing it? You know, it's it's hard to see a future where it's going to continue going up if things stay the way they are. Like we are progressing slowly, and I think everyone knew that it was going to be a bit of a slow burn with how quickly it's expanded. But yeah, there are some aspects that are very disappointing, and I think it makes it hard for new supporters and people who want to casually follow it to actually stay up to date with it. I found this season incredibly hard to follow um, when it came to teams that weren't my own because it was just so unpredictable. Games during the week, like 3 games in 9 days for teams, just craziness. So yeah,
Yeah.
where to from here? I'll be interested to see, but I completely agree with all Marnie's points on that.
The compressed fixture was one that it drew a lot of ire, and like I said, I will
Yeah.
I will I will address a little bit of my opinion on it a little bit later in a certain topic. We'll
Yeah.
discuss that. So let's go through the finals. Like I said, we know the premiers, but let's go through each of the games because as Marty kind of said, there was some absolute fantastic games, including one in the semifinals that I have to talk about because when I found that result and saw the end of it was absolutely in shock. So we'll jump to the first round. I know some tension between my co-hosts during this one as Icon Park saw North Melbourne v Adelaide and North again continuing their run with a 7-point win over Adelaide in what I thought was an absolutely fantastic game. This shows these are two of the best teams in this particular competition, as Jade said. You really have the top three with Melbourne kind of falling off, being the four for the longest time. And now this year, it was really three. It was North, it was Brisbane, it was Adelaide. It was what was going to be the combination in the grand final. North looked fantastic again this year. They were so solid defensively. Adelaide put it to them, but just fell a little bit short with a 7-point win by the Roos, 38-31. Marnie, your thoughts on this game? Again, North Crows put a little bit of a scare into him, but again, North just too good in the end.
Yeah, no, the first half was definitely a nervous watch for a lot of North fans. Adelaide really put the sword to us, but we came out really well and composed after halftime. I think that's been the biggest thing for me watching the girls is how far they've transformed. They just trust each other and they trust the system and they trust the process and they're very cool, calm, and collected. And we never really seem out of control or flustered. If anything, and like we saw in the grand final, I know we'll go to that, but in the second and third quarters of the grand final, we didn't let Brisbane breathe at all. We weren't necessarily getting any score on the board, but we were able to just minimize any impact that Brisbane were going to have. And so I think our ability to sort of just still somewhat seem like we're in control and in the game, even if we're down, which is what happened against Adelaide in the first half, that qualifying final. After halftime, sorry, we just came out and just ended up regaining all control. Bella Eddy with her little cameo, she kicked a couple goals. Amy Smith kicked her first ever AFLW goal, and that was epic timing. It essentially sealed the game for us. And then to be able to weather the storm in the fourth and hang on for the win was awesome.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I know not the result that Jade would have wanted, but again, I'll say this. The Crows were in it. They were in it until the fourth quarter, and then it just kind of unfortunately got away from them. They did kick a goal late, like I said, to make it that 7 point margin, but the Crows were in it for 95% of this game.
Yes, we were. But it wasn't to be. I won't get into the controversial free kick. I don't, I don't really uh, delve too much into that kind of stuff. But
Oh,
I
yes.
I
Okay.
wasn't able to
It's
watch.
like,
I wasn't able to watch the game. I was out and about, but I remember going on Twitter and all I could see was everyone swearing, carrying on, and I looked at it and I can understand the frustration from Crows fans, but at the end of the day, do I think it would have seen a different result? Not really. It probably would have changed the score at the end of the game, but I still don't think it would have seen us win. Um, so yeah, is what
yeah.
it is.
I may ruffle some crow's feathers. It was there. It was there. I know some people are like, it was. There's a player within handball reach that she looks at, she stares at for half a second. She has a chance to handball it. She does it, and then she turns and it's obvious that she goes through. Like I said, I know I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with that. That I think it's the correct call. I think it's harsh. I think
Yeah,
there is pressure on her. I will give her that. There is a defender there, but she perfectly had the opportunity to handball it to a teammate and she didn't take it. It's literally the equivalency of having a teammate down the sidelines, grabbing it, going, I don't feel like it, just walking out of bounds. So I
yeah,
get it. Like I
yeah,
completely get the outrage because for most people it's like, well, they're not going to call it, and I get that,
yeah,
but it was a little it was really obvious that that's what she was doing, and even
yeah,
the camera angle kind of betrays her a little bit that there was a teammate there an escape handball, probably into pressure. I get it, but
yeah,
that's your options. You can't assume
yeah,
that something's going to happen there. So
yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
one of those where
I'll
I
forgive you,
get
Donny. I'll forgive you. Okay.
it. Well, it's just more of like, again, it, the fans will see it the way they want to see it, no matter what.
Yeah, obviously, and
I mean, so
Crows fans going to be a bit more biased than North or neutrals watching it. So, and again, you look at it and go, okay, if that happened in the first quarter, would anyone be talking about it that much? Probably not.
no,
So,
no, and I think
is what it is.
that's yep, completely get it. But it was a game, a great game of football, a great game of football. Again, you have your superstars on both sides: Ed Marinoff, Chelsea Randall, Ann Hatchard,
Hmm.
Ash Riddell, Jazzy Garner. Just, I mean, it was a who's who on in this game. It was a magnificent game to watch. Again, it was interesting to see them start off. Like I said, the finals started off well. We'll jump off this game. We'll jump to the next one out west as the Fremantle Dockers continue a fantastic season, sending the Essendon Bombers home by 10, 36-26. Jade, we'll start with you again. I have to say it here. This Fremantle Dockers team has come out of nowhere this season, and Aisling McCarthy, for me, was the signing of the year because she was absolutely sensational for the Dockers.
Yes, they were. And it, like, I mean, you look at the Dockers and when you think of them, one of the first players that you think of is Kiara Bowers, of course, like just an absolute superstar. And not having her this season, absolute just integral part of that team. Um, so yeah, they were very impressive. and probably, the result against the Crows the week after. I know we'll get into that, but it probably didn't do their season justice ending it in that way.
Yeah,
And
well,
Essendon still haven't won a final.
they've made finals both in the last 2 years for the women, and unfortunately unfortunately still fall short. Marnie, your thoughts on this? Like I said, the WA team in Fremantle, it was fantastic to see it again. Essendon, that long travel out, unfortunately, no Bonnie Too Good, I think didn't help much at all.
No, and Essendon are an interesting one because I feel like similar to the men's, there was probably an expectation of them to be better than they actually were, and they couldn't quite live up to the expectation. I don't know if it's a culture thing. I don't want to offend anyone by saying that, but you just don't know. The one thing that makes me laugh from this game was that guy that was there with his sign, the bomb, days since Essendon won a final, and he had the zero, and unfortunately he's gone the early crow, just absolutely cooked it and made a meme of himself on the internet. So no, I like Freya. I've got a soft spot for Freya. I used to live in Perth, and I do love the Dockers, I should say, and I've seen their women's team play a couple of times. So kudos to them. Well deserved win. They Fremantle in general, both in both competitions, just somehow managed to fly under the radar when they play well.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think for sure on that one. We'll jump over to the Brisbane Lions as we go to Icon Park as the Hawks host the Brisbane Lions, and the Brisbane Lions show why everybody loved watching this team play as they get the interesting coaching matchup because you have the master and you have the apprentice, and as Starcevich shows the apprentice, I haven't taught you everything, young sir, as his girls get a 6 point win, 38-32. But I gotta say this Hawks team has been so much fun to watch. That the entire Hawthorn organization has really embraced this Hawk ball mentality, and I think it's been fantastic for the entire league because you're seeing kind of the one club mantra at several places. Because, as I said, the women and the men, there's a little bit of moxie to both of these sides. Marnie, we'll start with you again. Brisbane get the win, but the Hawthorn Hawks, they put it up to the defending premiers big time.
Oh yeah, the Hawks have been fun to watch, like you said, across both competitions. They're really youthful, really energetic. Um, they got a lot of spunk and like a lot of pizzazz, which I think is super fun to watch. But Brisbane has been arguably the best team in the history of the AFLW. You probably put them and Adelaide in that conversation. North probably aren't anywhere near that yet, considering they only won their first flag on the weekend. But I think they're just such a professional outfit, the Lions, and they know what they have to do. It's they don't run off this energy and adrenaline the same way that Hawthorn did. And unfortunately for Hawthorn, we saw that run out. They were probably the most disappointing team in the final series. They couldn't eclipse it when it mattered. And so look, Brisbane, they knew what they had to do, came down here, got the job done, secured a home prelim, sorry, and that was it.
All right,
No fuss.
Jade, your thoughts on this Lions Brisbane
Yeah,
matchup?
I think I'm pretty much, in agreement with Marnie there. Not too much to add. Brisbane is a tough spot for me to talk about when it comes to the AFLW side.
They're the proverbial Adelaide kryptonite, and
They
unfortunately,
are. They
that's just the
seriously
way
are.
they've become that. It was so much fun. Like I said, both these teams play very very similar. Like I said, you have Emily Bates coming over from the Brisbane Lions team, now onto the Hawthorn side. So there's several connections between the two. Just another fantastic game. Again, you see the superstars of Brisbane show up when they needed it too. They needed so that you get the Sophie Conways, you get the Taylor Smiths, you get the Orla or Dwyers, that they just make the plays that they need to. They get what they needed to done. Hawthorne again. I'm a little bit more of, and we can discuss this a little bit when we come on later, is Hawthorne was a little bit of a beneficiary of what Sydney did last year. Did they have the toughest schedule in the world? No. Did they win the games they needed to and pulled a couple that they probably weren't supposed to? Absolutely. That's why they finished second on the ladder. There's just no other way to argue it. it'll be fun to see Hawthorn next year because they're going to get a tougher, you're going to get a tougher fixture. How will they bounce back with it? Because we saw this year with Sydney, a couple of injuries, and they're back in the bottom four. So it'll be fascinating to see how this Hawthorn side goes. I think there's a lot of good things there, so I don't know if they're going to go tumbling unless you see a lot of injuries. But this was one of those. Hawthorn did not do themselves any disservice in this game. They played magnificent. It was fun to watch. Speaking of an expansion team from 2 years ago, Port Adelaide make their finals debut, and they start off with a bang as they knock off the Richmond Tigers 72-38 at Alberton Oval. And I will put my hand up and say this: I tipped this one. I tipped this one. Very few actually tipped Port Adelaide. Most of the people that I heard were tipping Richmond, and I remember in my finals preview and after round 10, my co-host, when I tipped this one, he went, "Are you sure?" And I went, "Matilda Schultz is coming back, a young team. They're at home. I thought the Alberton Oval fans have been magnificent this year, and you're coming off of there with a ton of positive energy coming off that GWS win, and I somehow got it right. I'm still in shock that I did, but I love what Port has put together. They've got a young group, but they've got some super talented veteran players. This was a fun Port team to watch. I know this is like acid, Jade, but you got to give some compliments. Port had a heck of a game in this game against Richmond.
I totally agree with you. I know we're going to get into it a bit later, but um, I had Port as one of the best, like teams improvement wise, um, this season. They were really great when you consider their record at the start, and halfway through the season. So yeah, they were great in this game. Posted their second highest score ever. So yeah, very good watch. Good to see them get their first final win. I feel like obviously there's still that, rivalry, but I feel like it's not as big for me in the women's side because I just, it's just great to see them all out there playing and enjoying it. So in showdowns, yes, avid Port hater, but I give them credit when it's due, Donny.
It's hard to argue, and you had to say this year it was quite an entertaining game at the start of the year. So I think Lauren Arnell and Port, they're starting to catch up. We're going to get some spicy ones that are actually super competitive. Cannot wait for that over in the showdowns. Always a fantastic matchup. Marnie, your thoughts on this again? Port Adelaide finding a way to get it done in a little bit of a shocker.
Yeah, Port Adelaide, what they're doing at the moment is very similar to North last year, in my opinion. We sort of were riding this adrenaline rush. We were riding on the high emotion and just sort of a bit of an avalanche. Like we just kept winning and we're just sort of riding momentum. And rather than actually having a level, not a level head's probably not the right word, but I think it's the self belief and they're on a roll. They won like 8 or 9 games in a row, Port, and they had a great final series. Obviously, bummed out, just felt the final hurdle, but I think this performance from them was excellent, and it really did show that they do have another level to go to. I also think with Port, we Adelaide was a dominant force in the AFLW pretty much up until Port Adelaide came into the competition. And it's not to say that Adelaide aren't a powerhouse because they obviously are, but South Australia is a breeding ground for exceptional football talent. It always has been, and that is what makes the SAMFL so successful in its own right as well. There is a lot of talent and not a lot of teams to go to. So when Port Adelaide came into the competition, AFLW is still a part-time thing for so many of these women. So a lot of Adelaide and South Australian women, they want to stay in Adelaide or in South Australia. They don't want to go anywhere else to play footy. So it's not a surprise to me necessarily that Port Adelaide has been able to, have success, and hopefully for them it's sustained success and they can, start to move up the ladder and become sort of a permanent fixture in those top sides. So kudos to them. I think it was a wonderful performance, and I think that was really well deserved after the way they sort of finished out the home and away season.
Well, I'm telling, I'll say this. Port Adelaide used the rules very, very well this year because when you're able to sign, and again, we didn't even see her this year. We've still got Lauren Young to come, and she was the number one girl in last year's draft class. She tore her ACL in Sample W. That's the scary part about this poor team is that okay, so you take Lauren Arnell off, you sign Shanae Goody, you sign Molly Brooksby, both wore um, Rising Star nominations this year. You also draft Piper Window, who played most of the season through the midfield. The scary thing about this port team is the fact is that they've got five core youngsters that are all under 22 that are going to grow together. As long as Port can keep them all in teal and black, this is going to be a scary team because they're going to grow together. They're going to get better together. So Port, like I said, they use the rules to their advantage, and they're going to be fun to watch. If I'm an Adelaide supporter, and again, Jade, I'm not trying to put fear into you. Port is coming, and they are coming like a freight train because of Matilda Schultz, Lauren Young, who's still to come, Molly Brooksby, Shanae Goody, Piper Window.
Hmm.
There's a lot to be excited for in the teal and black side of Port. Again, Adelaide still has the experience, and you still have Ab Marinoff and Ann Hatchard. They're going to be a pain in the tail. But I'll tell you, Port is coming when it comes to that team in South Australia. They're going to be fun, fun, fun to watch just because of the pure youngsters and talent that they have in that squad. It'll be fun to watch for sure. So we'll move to the semifinals, and Jade gets a little bit of a nicer one to talk about as Adelaide smashed the Fremantle Dockers by 37, 49 to 12. Adelaide just too good. Jade, how good was it to see the girls bounce back after a tough loss to North in the
Oh,
qualifying final?
yes, look, very impressive. I had, you know, zero doubts that that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, again, as Marnie was mentioning earlier, this one with the scheduling, it was an extremely hot day. It was so humid, and then it was ridiculously windy. I had planned to go to the game, but the weather was literally unbearable. Like it was shocking out there. Um, and yeah, it was like mid-afternoon, and yeah, you just look at it and go, everyone was saying there's like no one there, and it was just because the weather was dreadful. And again, they'd scheduled it on the same time as the women's Big Bash League, and on the same day, right near where the um, car racing was in the city as well. So just not ideal at all. But yeah, very very impressive. I think someone who for the Crows who incredible player, incredible past captain, Chelsea Randall. I honestly think this final series is her best one she's ever played. She was just incredible. She held her ground. She plays her role. When she's out there, the team is rolling. Like she is just, yeah, amazing. It's hard to like actually comprehend and talk about what she does for that team. We're completely different when she's not out there. So, and she's also a lovely, lovely um, human. So yes, I love Chelsea, and it was good to get this win and get into you know another prelim. So yeah, very pleased.
I don't normally like going to this, but I will. Chelsea Randall is an absolute warrior. I love her to death because she just gives everything. She does anything she can for her team. If she's got to play defense, she'll play defense. If she's got to play forward, she'll play forward. Literally, wherever you need her, whatever you want her to do, she will do it, and she will do it to the best of her ability. I 100% with you. I think Chelsea Randall has been absolutely fantastic. It will be a very sad day when she leaves footy because
It, I will
she's what
cry.
she is what a lot of female footballers want to be like. In fact, I even think some men should play like her because she absolutely gives everything 100%. I absolutely I adore Chelsea Randall's game. I love watching her play. It's been fantastic. Like I said, it will be a sad day when we no longer have her in the tricolors for sure, but it is again fantastic to hear again the love that she gets from the Adelaide supporters and even some non-Adelaide supporters is fantastic.
Mm.
So Marnie, we'll hop to you again. One of the few blowouts in this final series that I had to say a lot of good competitive footy, but again, the Dockers. nothing against them, but you just ran up, you ran into an angry Adelaide side that were angry that they fell short against North, and you unfortunately were the opponents that they took it out on.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as I was sort of speaking about before, Brisbane, North, and Adelaide have been the standout teams this season. And then the competition overall, it's really been Adelaide and Brisbane have dominated. And you can never really have a discussion about, the pointy end of the final series without at least Brisbane and Adelaide and North in recent seasons now. So unfortunately for the Dockers, this one didn't surprise me. Maybe the margin did, but the result itself didn't surprise me at all. Adelaide were definitely coming back with a vengeance. And yeah, unfortunately for Freo, they were the ones that stood in their way.
Yeah, again, Frio had an incredible season. Like I said, you ran into the buzzsaw that is an angry Adelaide Crows side that wanted to prove a point that they're still one of the elite teams in the competition. Unfortunately, Fremantle was the punching proverbial punching bag that they got handed to. Let's jump over Icon Park in Melbourne, where we see the absolute shocker as Hawthorn goes out in straight sets in a 1 point thriller as Port Adelaide, the Power, find a way to get it done, knocking off the Hawks, sending themselves into a preliminary final, just like last year. The shocker fourth team in the preliminary final is a team nobody would have guessed. But I'll say this. I said it and again, I'm tooting my own horn way too much here. I apologize. Normally, I'm not this ostentatious when it comes to it. But in my preview of the finals, I said if there's a team that can get to if there's a team that I think out of the bottom four that could cause some trouble, it's Port Adelaide. So I had to again tap my back. I didn't tip it actually. I will say this. I did not tip that one. I had Hawthorn getting to the preliminary final, but I believe in this Port side. I like what Lauren Arnell is doing. It was a lot of fun to watch this one. It was absolutely incredible to watch this game. The Hawks, I kind of think they ran out of steam playing that really good Brisbane side the week before, and then getting a Port team that literally they knew, let's just go for it. And they did, and they found a way to get it done. So again, I know this isn't easy to talk nicely about Port, Jade, but your thoughts on this because this was a shocker.
This was a fantastic game. I have it as my game of the season. Um, just yeah, one completely unexpected. Port were just great, and to come from 22 points down at three-quarter time, um, and end up winning in the way that they did, it's just a testament to how well they've played in the back half of this season. So as you were talking about before, definitely, I think all the pieces are falling into place for them, and they're definitely a side that I think will be on the rise over the next couple of years. And I'm scared for the showdowns, Donny. I'm scared.
I'm not trying to put fear into it, but like I said, I remember talking to my draft expert, and he was like, if you could have any way to be it more perfect, I don't see how you could have. Just because
That's
you
it.
get the one and you get the top the number one and the number two girl in the draft both without having to do anything except for re-signing them. And then you get Molly
Yeah.
Brooksby, a top 15 player in that, like I said, and Matilda Schultz had moved up and signed as a priority free agent the year before, and she would have been in that same draft class, and she would have
Yeah.
been top five. So you really think about it, if you put them all in the draft, you get one, two, probably five, and 12 all in one draft.
Yeah.
And that's not even drafting. And then you get Piper Window, who's also a top 10 in your actual pick. So it was
Incredible.
it was absolutely insane. They're a fun team to watch, and especially when you had Gemma Houghton, who is just an absolute electrifying player. When the ball hits the ground, you just don't know what she can do with her speed and her ability. And she's such a smart football
Hmm.
player. It's so much fun to watch. So that was that was the shocker that I definitely I got a kick out of that game. That game was absolutely magnificent. But unfortunately, it's short-lived. We'll jump to the preliminary finals where Marnie Smiles is unfortunately the fairy tale ends as North goes, "Hey Port, welcome to reality," with a smashing 57-point win, 78-21. Marty, was there any fear going into this Port game, knowing what they did in the preliminary final against a very good Hawks team?
Of course, I think like there's always fear in the back of your mind. And even though our men and women could not be further far apart at the moment. So, just being associated with the North Melbourne brand, you do have nerves. And going into it, I think you want it so bad for the girls as well. But I also think the other part is, and it's hard because you look at Port and you're like, okay, we expect you to fall at some point. Like, how long can you keep riding this high for? But then I'm saying that about Port when North haven't lost a game all season. So it's like, should I be feeling the same way about North? But it was evident that that semi final just took it out of them, and the game was over by halftime. So it was a very enjoyable second half, that's for sure. Um, Lots of fun and lots of contributors, and yeah, we ended up just waltzing on into the grand final.
With one thing is there's far less tension in you come the second half when it is the way it is
Yeah.
again.
Oh, yeah.
Again, all claps and great seasons for Port Adelaide. You can't deny that. And again, as a Port fan, you kind of almost tap yourself on the back and go, well, "Hey, at least we lost to the Premiers by that margin in the preliminary final. So at least it wasn't all bad." So Jade, again, this Norse team again, just they showed why they were one of the best in the competition. Again, unbeaten in the regular season. That one draw threw me off earlier in the year. I will raise my hand. Somebody called me out. I did not have them as unbeaten. I forgot that the draw is not an unbeaten. So I will take my whack on that one. But North just so good, and they showed why they were one of the best teams in the league this year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt that when you look at the season as a whole, um, they deserved to to win it on the weekend. So yeah, I have zero doubts there. I think looking at this game and Port's result, I think that it'd be hard to find a Port fan that was disappointed in the end. Like, obviously it would have been great to get with that win, but I think that the way that they had performed in the previous 2 weeks in finals and that it just, you know, you can't be disappointed as a fan with the way that they showed up and what they dished up um, during those games. So yeah, good on them. Good on both sides.
And then the other half of the grand final gets set as the Brisbane Lions again play spoiler to the Adelaide Crows again, unfortunately, as they get the 18-point win, 50-32 up in Brighton Homes Arena. And again, I'll say this, the Crows did everything they could, but this Brisbane Lions outfit, when they needed a great performance, they got it. And unfortunately, it comes again at the expense of the Adelaide Crows. Jade, I know this was probably tough. The 18-point margin, it might even be a little bit big for what I thought was a super competitive game throughout.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. I think it was pretty even playing field up to about halftime. There was that call that was the play on, I think it was the play on call when one of the Crows players marked it in Brisbane's inside 50, and or got a free. I can't remember which one it was, but Brisbane went and goaled straight off the back of that, and they got another one soon after. So I think that just threw us off. And when it comes to the women's games, when they are so close, um, it's just things like that can really impact the the performance throughout the rest of the game. So I think that rattled us a bit. And there's obviously past history and all that um, against the Crows in Brisbane. So yeah, it was our biggest loss of the whole season. The rest were all single digits. So disappointing to go out in a prelim again, but what can you do about it?
Yeah, unfortunately, they've like I said, they've been your kryptonite a little bit. Unfortunately, those Brisbane Lions girls again, their system is so difficult. So, Marnie, to you as the supporter North sitting at home watching this game, did you have a favorite that you were hoping for? Because I know personally, because I knew you two were coming on, there's part of me that wanted the Crows North Grand Final, just for the fun of talking to you two if we got to the Grand Final. But did you have a choice when it came to it as the North supporter? Did you want Brisbane to have that chance for revenge in the Grand Final, or did you want to play Adelaide, knowing that you had already taken them down earlier in the finals?
Yeah, look, there were pros and cons with both sides. Adelaide's probably been our biggest challenge and our biggest threat all season, personally. The two games we played against Adelaide have both been hard slogs, and we've only come out winning by like I think it was 8 points and then 7 in the qualifier. Um, so to play them for a third time in 5 weeks probably wasn't what we were looking for. Having said that, we did beat Brisbane at the start of the season, and it was a comfortable win. But that was early days. Um, and obviously they had come out and had a really really great season and finished in the top couple once again. So for us, I think that the opportunity for revenge was probably there for the taking. You obviously have a bit of doubt in your mind because last season we were in control for the first 3 quarters of the grand final as well. But I think just given how frequently we had played Adelaide at the back half of the season and how close both games had been, you probably don't want to take your chance a third time round because they probably would have pipped us, I think. Well, I don't know, but that sort of in my mind, I feel like maybe they would have pipped us had we gone for a third duel. So I was happy that we got Brisbane and it ended up, you know, being a great matchup for us in the end.
Definitely, for sure. We jumped to the grand final, and on the day, there's just no other words to say it. North were sensational. They were magnificent. Any superlative you can come up with, North were absolutely fantastic. Getting the win, premiers for this particular season in a 39-9 rout of the Brisbane Lions. And I will say this, Marnie, I'll go straight to you on this. I have never seen such a complete performance by a team this season as there was in this. North saved their best for the last day of the season. How fantastic was it? You were there at Icon Park. How great was this atmosphere? It's fully sold out, and North put on the best possible performance they could.
Oh, the atmosphere was electric. In the final 60 seconds of the game, then all the fans had to sing the song with the chant at the start and then to lead into the theme song. And you had goosebumps. You've got the bright lights at night. It was unreal. Honestly, it couldn't have gone any better. Um, I think that people would look at the score and think, oh, AFLW, a low scoring affair in a grand final. But if you actually watch the game, we were challenged so hard for I would say 3 quarters, to be perfectly honest with you. But our ability to weather the storm, the way that the team lifts defensively when it needs to, it's an incredibly solid unit. The trust the players have within one another is incredible. Emma Carney played the game of her life. I mean, you wouldn't have known that last week was her first game off the back of a hamstring injury. Like she's just superhuman. And that's what a great captain does. You know, she took it upon herself. She was the fire starter in the first quarter, along with Sarah Wright. Sarah Wright's performance on Dakota Davidson, her and Jazz Ferguson swapped between the two of them. But my God, Sarah Wright's performance was just out of this world, incredible. And then, it moves to the midfield with, Jazzy Garner and Ash Riddell and Jenna Bruton, all the regular contributors. And then forward, Tess Craven pushed forward and had a remarkable game. She was a standout early. Alice O'Loughlin, of course, Vicky Wall. And then even like Kate Shearlaw and Emma King contributed in their own way to still bring the ball to ground and create an option up forward. There's just so much balance in this team. The floor of this team is raised, and every team has their superstars, but our role players are all excellent players. And I guess the clean bill of health, the continuity we're able to have as a team, and then Emma Carney to come back in right at the perfect time. I think it all just went to script for us, and this team deserved a premiership this year, and I'm so glad that we were able to get it done.
All right, I gotta ask Jade, as with Marnie being your bestie, how happy were you for her and for North to see them knock off the Brisbane Lions? A little bit. There's got to be a little bit as the Crows fan, loving seeing Brisbane get humbled a little bit.
Yes, of course, Donny. You know that I wouldn't have it any other way. Uh, yeah, obviously very pleased for any of my friends when their teams do well, except when it's against my team. So yes, very happy for Marnie, very happy for all North supporters. Um, obviously, I think the men's side has been through a very tough period over the last, few years, and to be able to see such a dominant women's side that really come out, play really good footy, and just put on a show for the fans and bring back the cup. You can't be mad at that.
100%. And like I said, what I loved about it was, and they talked about it several times in the broadcast, is the fact that I know the men have been mired. They unfortunately have not been anywhere near where they want to be. But for them to surround the girls and to just be up and about for the girls was fantastic. And then you could just tell the excitement amongst the North supporters the later the game got and the more you could feel the joy coming out because it has been a while. It's been so long since any team has had success in that way to bring a premiership. And the joy on the girls' faces as they saw the fans just embrace the whole thing. Icon Park was absolutely sold out. I thought it was fantastic. It was a marvelous atmosphere. I thought that though Brisbane didn't have as many as North, they were still very boisterous. I thought the atmosphere was magnificent. Again, I'm watching the game at 2:45 in the morning up here, and I'm enthralled by this game. I thought it was absolutely
You're
fantastic.
so dedicated, Donny. I love it.
No,
Hey,
absolutely.
when you review the games, you gotta get up and about, and especially
You
for a
too.
grand final, you cannot miss it. And I'll go to this just really quickly. I know it's a little bit of a question without notice. Marnie again, grand final at night. Do you think this is something that stays on? Because honestly, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a great spectacle, and I enjoy it from that element of it. But being a fan, it's a really long day, and it's a really long, drawn out build up. And admittedly, this is the first time I've ever really been genuinely invested in the AFLW. I've always liked it, but I've followed it closely this season for North. And I know that if that was the men, I would actually be tearing my hair out by the time 7:45 comes along. It's way too long of a day to wait, and I can only imagine that the girls would have probably felt it tenfold, and those diehard North AFLW fans probably also would have felt it a lot more than I did. But obviously, it's a great spectacle. The celebrations post game were awesome. The atmosphere was great, but and really, a a pretty tragic diehard supporter, um, anytime, anywhere, I'll be there, sort of thing. And I think most diehards would say the same thing. So, you know, all the discussion, I guess, goes away after that. But from a spectacle point of view, it was magnificent. Yeah.
All right, Jade, your thoughts. I know your team wasn't in it, but grand final night, yes, no, your thoughts.
I have an unpopular opinion when it comes to the grand finals because I have the same view on the men's grand final as well, which I know is not well received by the general public, but I am a massive advocate for a twilight grand final. So I wouldn't push for a night one, but I would push for a grand final starting at, 4 o'clock. And you get half in the day, half at night. I know it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but that's my favorite time slot, and I think it could be one way to kind of meet in the middle,
Mhm.
um, and still not start too late, but just being able to have the sun setting in the background and all that. Um, I think yeah, the atmosphere would just obviously a grand final is exciting regardless of when it is. As Marnie said, if you love it, you're going to go no matter what. Um, but I would love to see a twilight one someday, whether it be men's or women's footy.
I'll tell you this, the hints that I'm getting is I think you're a little bit more on target than you're giving yourself credit for. So we'll state it that way.
Well, there we
I'm
go.
one of those. Here's my rebuttal. And again, I understand the people that are like, it's tradition, it's tradition, it's tradition. I get it's
Mhm.
tradition. Trust me, as an American, I kind of like the 2:30 grand final for the men's because that's at a decent 11 p.m. for me. That's not bad. The problem is, as you saw, as the night game is I had to get up at 2:45 in the morning to watch this grand
Yeah.
final. Now I'll do it. I'm nuts. I'll be honest with that. Here's the thing. I want you to go through and think about sport as a whole. If you look at it, the Super Bowl over here played at night.
Mm.
The World Series, every single game of the baseball World Series is played at night.
Mhm.
99% of great championship stuff where a title or something that's cup is going to be played for is played at night. Again, I get the tradition because it's something different because again, when originally the sport was being played, there was no night games. So I get the 2:30
Mm,
tradition. I just have a feeling it's going to go to night just because it's going to draw more eyeballs. That's more of my call. Again, I am not saying I want that because again, those 2:45 a.m. wake ups are not easy. Definitely. They're not easy. But I have a feeling that's the way it's going because everything is commercial. Everything is about eyeballs. Everything is about dollar signs. And unfortunately, that's where I think it's going to go. And I think the women's now, because of so many people showing up, and I think if I saw correctly, that the grand final was the most viewed game this season,
mm,
television and streaming wise. I mean, the AFL's got every single metric that they want to show you that that's what they're going to do. And I have a feeling
yep.
that's what they're going to do. Is it perfect for the fan? Absolutely not. I agree with Marnie. That's a long day because you have to
Mm,
get to that particular time period. But you also say this during the home and away season, even in the men's, aren't there night games? There are.
mm,
So the argument kind of loses a little bit of steam considering it happens all the time in regular seasons. Now, it's not the same as a grand final. I get it. So I get that retort. So again, magnificent. Grand final was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Brisbane and North fans, for showing up. Thank you for selling out Icon Park. It looked magnificent in that. Do I agree with Marnie that I think Marvel Stadium would have been fantastic if it weren't for absolute crap when it comes to scheduling? Yes, I completely agree with you. So I think Marvel Stadium would have been magnificent to have that game in, but c'est la vie. It happens. So we'll jump to it. Season is over. We have a premiere. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's talk about this season as a whole. All right. We'll start off. We'll talk some awards a little bit. And I know Marnie will have some fun with this one. Let's talk the AA team. We saw the squad. We kind of went through it. The AA team was announced. I'm not going to go through each and every single one. Your thoughts, Marnie, because I know your gripe would be North Melbourne has the best defense, and unfortunately, not a single North Melbourne defender makes the All Australian team.
Yeah, look, I just think as a whole, and look, every AA team, men, women, it's, the amount of fighting and discussion that happens over a fake team every single year, and we all get sucked in. Like, I completely understand that. I just think, and this is, I think, all fans think that the AFL has a vendetta against them as well. But North did not lose a game all season. They had one draw, and that was it. That was the only blemish, call it blemish, on their season. I understand that as a team, they're an extremely strong unit, but they had only three players make the AA team. And like I said, and like you said, Johnny, sorry, and we spoke about it off air before, not one defender made the All Australian side. I think it's disrespectful. The highest score we conceded all season was 36 points, and that was Geelong, and we drew with them. Like, that's world class. Like, that is the season, I think, was just phenomenal across the board. And we have the strongest defense, obviously, in the competition with, churning out results like that week in, week out. I get it's a lot of defensive work and defensive pressure. It starts in the middle, and a defensive pressure up forward is equally as good. But I just think there's a lack of respect. But like I said, every supporter thinks that the AFL has a vendetta against their team. I'm no
Mhm.
different to that. But I think that given North season, I think there's a little bit of merit. There's a little bit of merit to that argument. I would
Yeah.
like to think anyway.
I will not disagree with you. You have very much an argument. I pulled it up because I just wanted to look at it. And if you really look at it, when it comes to the defenders, it really was the defenders were primarily chosen on statistics. If you really look at it, and if you look at the statistics of the Wright, the Fergusons, the car. Unfortunately, Emma Carney's injury, I think, really took her out of contention there. And Libby Birch, they just didn't put up the statistics because again, North was one of those teams. They put up a lot of points, so North didn't have a lot of games where they had a ton of ball on their defensive side. Now there were some games where there was some quarters where they were in their own half a little bit more than others. So I think that's the argument that the AA group was going to say is that statistically these are some of the best defenders because when the ball was there they were making plays. So but I completely agree with you. I think there's a couple that I'm looking at it going statistically are the reason they're there. I love Maddie Gay, but it's because she was playing on a halfback line on an Essendon team. It was there a little bit more than others. She was putting up massive numbers. Tilly Lucas Rod, I think, was fantastic off the halfback line. Emma O'Driscoll again. All of those, they put up good numbers. That's why they're there. I will go to bat for Brenna Tarrant this year. I will go to bat for her, not just because I watched her because she's a Swans fan, because she was magnificent in the back for having as much footy that she had to deal with this year. That I will go to bat with you. Chelsea Bedell, I may irk off Jade a little bit. I'm not really sure
Donny!
on that one. I'm not really sure on that, but again, this is the sucked in, as you said, Marty, as the sucked in part. It, that's the only one of the starters that I sit here and I could go I could see an argument for, but Chelsea was very good. Chelsea was very good this year again. I think she had a little bit more to do this year than years before, so I think that's again statistically is why that happened. But I see your argument and I completely agree. Like you could almost say the All Australian defense should be the entire North D because they were the best defense in the entire competition this year. But for me, well, actually, no. Timeout. We'll go to Jade. Jade again. Your Adelaide Crows get four in. Chelsea Bedell, two. Let me go through it really quickly here.
Randall Gould.
Randall, Gould, and Marinoff all make.
Yes.
No, yeah, yeah. All make it
Yeah.
again. All very well deserving. Great seasons by all four.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been really ruffling my feathers tonight, Donny. What's with that?
I'm not trying to. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that you do a disclosure before you say it, so you give me a second to prepare. But yeah, look, I think all four spots are well deserved. As we've said, it's the decisions for the All Australian team. There's always, you know,
Strife.
whatever team you're biased towards your team. But some of the statements absolutely more than fair enough. I get sucked into it too. So yeah, I think the four Crows girls that landed there, very deserving when you take a good look at how they play. Gould had a really really good season, especially with Eloise Jones getting injured, so she really stepped up and was able to fill that void there, especially with Eloise Jones' start to the season and her season last year as well, were just really, really, really great. So, yeah, I think they all deserved where it landed. But yeah, as we said, it's one of those things that it's just a make-up team. So,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, um, what can we do about
I'm
it?
I get that it's a makeup team again. I really would love to see them bring the international series. So then they actually had to take it seriously
Mm,
instead of just throwing
yeah.
names down just because they're popular or they put up statistics. It'd be fun. What I had to smile about personally, and this maybe it's just because of my relationship, is Mike Curran is probably grinning like a Cheshire cat because three Irish players make the entire half forward line. Aisling McCarthy, Aisling Maloney, and Eileen Gilroy make the half forward line for this team. I know he had to be grinning like a Cheshire cat as he saw that because of the fact that the Irish they have done so much for this competition again. It's been so much fun to see these women absolutely come in with their flair and all that they do that the Irish have done. I really, really, really want to see an international series between Australia and Ireland again because just with the women in the AFLW, it's going to be a heck of a game. I really, really want to see that happen. So huge shout out to Mike Curran again. The fact that he has three Irish players all in the All Australian team along the half forward line was absolutely magnificent. My one gripe, and I do it every year, damn it, stop putting center midfielders at the half forward line. I know Aisling McCarthy had an incredible season. She had a fantastic season. She probably should be in the center mid, personally. Again, personal opinion. Again, everybody has one. But stop doing it. Put Alice O'Loughlin as a starter. She was a half forward. Put her there. Don't give a center midfielder that half forward spot. That's the only gripe that I have. It's lazy. I know it's heavy words, I know, but it's lazy. Personally, it is lazy. Five forwards, five defenders, six midfielders. You can do it. It's not that difficult. Just very, very frustrating. Very, very frustrating.
Donny, you're on the selection panel next season, all right?
I really wish, but I'd ruffle so many feathers. I love Ella Roberts. I think she's fantastic, but she's not a wing, and she's put on the wing position. I don't. That's the only other one that I would have a gripe with. She could play
Yeah.
wing, she just doesn't very much. So that's the
Mm.
only other one. Sophie Conway, perfect. Again, unfortunately, there's only three or four really good wings. You've got, like, again, you've got Neve Kelly at Adelaide. You've got Sophia Hurley at Sydney. Orla O'Dwyer, the other of the wing combos up at Brisbane. But other than that, most teams they don't have that really good wing player, so it's hard sometimes to find that second wing. So that doesn't surprise me that they go with another primarily central midfielder, half forward type of rotational player. So I get that, but it is frustrating when it's like if you're going to call it a team,
Yeah.
make a team. So, but
Make it functional. Yeah.
at least. So, all right, we'll have some more fun with this, but we'll go through to awards. We'll go to awards night. Again, I'm trying to pump up my co-host big time. We'll start. We'll end at the awards with a big one. Mark of the year, goal of the year. We kind of saw that this year with this season. Rising star, awards night. Always entertaining, especially seeing the girls let their hair down a little bit, especially the teams that are not in the finals anymore. But your thoughts on awards night? It's always entertaining. Did any awards surprise you? We'll start off with you, Marnie. Did everything kind of go the way you thought it did?
I mean, Jazzy Garner should have probably polled a few more votes in that main event. But otherwise, no, it's a bit of fun. It's so funny. I spoke to Bella Eddy um, a couple of days after the awards night. She was there. There was quite a few North girls there, and she goes, "Oh, it was a massive flex being the only table on the waters, but they still had a really great time." Um, I think, look, from our perspective, and from a North perspective, it's obviously a lovely evening. And Noffy was definitely a well deserving winner of the main, the best and fairest. So I don't want to take anything away from her, but for us, our eyes were half on the awards night, but half on Saturday night's grand final. So I think it was a lovely evening. Like I said, it always is, and it's great to celebrate the women that make our sport great. But for a North perspective, I was wrapped for the girls and those who won awards, and Ash Riddell obviously coming second place in the best and fairest. But I had one eye on Saturday night, so that was probably where I was at from a North perspective on the awards night.
Definitely for sure. Jade, like I said, we'll save the favorite part. I know as Marnie said, best and fairest, but thoughts on it because not only did you get best and fairest, but you also get goal of the year. Hannah Munyard's snap from the pocket was absolutely fantastic, getting goal of the year.
It was a great goal, and I was actually at that game when she kicked that goal, and we almost couldn't believe that it went through. Like sitting there, we were on the boundary, and we saw that like everyone, celebrating, and they waved the flags, and we were like, "Holy shit! Like that was a goal! Like just unbelievable." So yeah, no, very well deserved. Love that she spilt some, raspberry coolie on her dress before she went out there. She was trying to cover that. And like a big wet patch where she tried to get it off. So yeah, no, it's great fun. I think it's a really, really good night for the girls, and being able to get out there and celebrate their achievements as a group and as the league grows. It's a special night, and I think it's so great to see that team morale and support really on show as well in those kind of environments. You see how the Crows girls got around, Marinoff winning. And it's great to see. Like it's feel good, like heartwarming moments from those kind of events. So yeah, very, very, very stoked about that. And I'll gladly talk a bit about Marinoff if you want me to.
Well, I was gonna go. Let's give me a tiny break before we go to Ed Marinoff because again, as I kind of noticed, I totally forgot. South Australia swept all of that because you get Hannah
We
Munyard.
did.
Hannah Munyard gets the goal of the year. Rising star Matilda Schultz and mark of the year Matilda Schultz was absolutely fantastic. And I got to say, she had the room cracking up when she was trying to talk about the sponsor, and I had to chuckle as the second time she's like, I'm not going to mess it up. And then she did. And it was like, I could not stop laughing. It was absolutely fantastic. She is so much fun to watch. I cannot wait to see Matilda Schultz continue to grow again, part of that young core at Port Adelaide. But I'll go to you, Marty, on this. Everybody saw this mark. It was mark of the year. Obviously, I know Mattia Breeden and oh my gosh, I can't even remember who the other one was. But I mean, this was obviously mark of the year. But my favorite part is the fact is that she's just as shocked as she's coming down from the mark. I mean, when you saw this, I mean, how incredible was this mark? Because it was great to see a good old fashioned hanger by the women.
It was awesome. And I love the rawness and the emotion of the women as well. It's a little bit more unfiltered and unpolished as the men. And that's what makes these evenings so entertaining. Obviously it's all about celebration and accolades and stuff like that. But with that comes the comedy and comes the realness, I guess, that is so pure about the AFLW. And that's one thing I love about the AFLW is that real. Doesn't seem like there's such a barrier between the players and the fans. It's a lot more unfiltered, which I loved. So, yeah, she's a ripper.
She was
Tilly
absolute.
Schultz. She's
She
hilarious.
she is absolutely hilarious. I know that I've said it a few times. It's like Emma O'Driscoll last year making AA and then her interview, and she absolutely had me in stitches. Like I was literally almost on the floor laughing because there's just a rawness about it. Ruby Schleicher a couple of years ago in her interview, just they make me crack up because they're just so honest. Like I agree with what a co-host of mine one time said is that they haven't had the genuine coached out of them because a lot of the males they're coached on media training, so they give you whitewashed answers. There's no personality to them until they don't care. So it's like it's hilarious to me to watch the women because they haven't had that. So it's very raw. Like you get their honest truth, and it's almost hilarious what will come out of their mouths, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love awards night. It is absolutely a must watch for me. I definitely cannot miss that. So let's end it. Ebony Marinoff gets the win in the best and fairest. I was so happy to see her teammates get around her. And as the Crow supporter that you are, Jade, how awesome. Finally, Eb Marinoff finally gets named best player, best and fairest of the AFLW competition for 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely stoked for her. I think she is another just amazing human all around. The Crows recently released a, day in the life video of her, and her dedication to the sport as a whole is just unmatched. Like she truly cares about it. She's always striving to be her best self. And I think there was like a quote or something like that where she said that like, there's no one more determined than her. Like, and you see the way she plays, you see the way she speaks, the way she conducts herself, and there's just no statement that could be more accurate um than that to describe her. And she's just a superstar all around. Like I did write these down because there's no way I remember these numbers, but um, this season, like competition highest average, like 30.4 disposals, 23.5 kicks, 12.4 tackles, 26.4 pressure acts, 6.3 inside 50s. Like that is just crazy numbers. You don't see those numbers. And you just go like now a 7-time All Australian in the final team and 2 times in the squad. So she's just you know, a star. Like you really can't fault her. Um, so I'm very, very happy for her and very, very well deserved.
And vice captain of the AA team as well. So it just
That's
an
it.
incredible year for her.
That's it.
And the other thing too that makes those numbers even scarier is the fact that the women's game is a little bit shorter than the men's, and for her to
Yep.
put up those numbers still was ridiculous,
And she's
absolutely
so
ridiculous.
consistent. You
Hmm.
just don't really see her have an off game. And even what you would consider her off game is probably like
Still
a
bloody
good
good.
game for, you know, most other players. So she is a superstar.
Yep. There are players in the league that will never see 25 disposals in a game, and
Yeah.
that's her lowest.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
it.
again, I love Nafi. She's absolutely a character and a half, and she just plays the game of footy the way I love watching it. So absolutely wrapped for Nafi again. It was one of those that unfortunately Anne Hatchard had a little bit of a down year, and I think that really helped her because I know years
Yeah.
before Anne and Ebony would kind of take votes off of each other, and that was always what was getting. I think it, unfortunately, is probably the reason why Jazzy may not get a best and fairest in the league. In fact, I have to go to this. It's the roar of the room when Jazzy got her first votes was absolutely like it was almost kind of a proverbial stuff you to get stuffed to the league
As
because
it should be.
and then even the interviews later where they were like, well, we're finally glad Jazzy finally, like I think it was Mon Conti, and they were like, we were finally glad Jazzy got votes. Like the entire league is kind of banded together and kind of like, what are you doing, umpires? So it's kind of one of those like fascinating one. It's like I joked last year, I said I think Jazz Garner needs to dye her hair blonde and wear pink boots because for some weird reason they just don't notice her. Like I don't know how because the footy's always around her, but it's for some weird reason she's just unnoticeable, which is weird for a player that does so much in the league that anybody that watches AFLW can see her impact on the team. So it was the one thing I thought was funny is the entire room went nuts when Jazz Garner got her first votes. It was kind of like, hey, umpires, the players see it. How come you're not seeing it? So it's kind of one of those funny ones on that. So well, so we're done with awards night. We'll go a little bit on the season review as a whole. Just so I have a few topics that I like talking about just to kind of see how everything's going. So I've got one sad one, and then we'll do some positive ones. We'll get the sad one out of the way. I always like talking about this. What was your biggest disappointment for the AFLW as a whole? So Marnie, we'll start with you. Biggest disappointment for the AFLW this year.
I think we've sort of touched on this already. I'm not going to talk about like teams or anything like that, but I just think the inconsistencies that we see throughout the league, saying they want to make games accessible during school holidays and schedule games at 5 o'clock on a Friday or a Wednesday night. Like that's not really like it's accessible, but like not really. Like it doesn't make any sense. And there's so much toing and froing and so many backflip decisions made when it comes to the AFLW. You kind of feel like they take one step forward and two steps back at times. And I think we're getting to this point now where there is starting to trickle through a lot of talent in the competition, but it's clear there isn't enough talent to properly filter through 18 clubs. So the AFL really needs to make a decision on which way they want to take it. We got to get to a point where they've made the decision to expand the league really quickly, because clearly the demand was there for a portion of fans and from football clubs to be included in the competition. But we're coming up to a line in the sand now. We're 9 seasons in. Next season will be the 10th season of the competition, and the AFL really need to figure out which way they want to take it because right now it's hard to know what that looks like. We've got 10 games. Not every team plays each other, which is fine, but sometimes the quality of these games is still not there. I mean, you've got some games that are blowouts, they're 10, 12 goal margins, and there shouldn't be such a huge disparity between the best and the worst teams in the competition that some of them are just completely unable to compete at all. So I think in terms of disappointment, that's really where it sits. It's been an issue most of the existence of the league, but I think we are approaching a crossroads in terms of time, in terms of talent, in terms of numbers, and in terms of the investment we need to make from the AFL level to be able to properly have this grow, or it's just kind of going to be a bit of a side piece. And it's going to be really hard to get the majority to get on board seriously.
Yep, I get it. Jade, biggest disappointment. Like I said, you can go at the AFLW if you want here. I'm perfectly fine with that. Or if you have a team or player that disappointed you this year.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think I won't talk too much on it because we covered it off early. Marnie just covered it off pretty well. But yeah, it's there's disappointing aspects to the way that it's the AFLW as a whole is being run. I think in some cases it doesn't get the respect that it deserves. These girls are playing for well, they're investing like so much of their year when it comes to preseason and all that, and they're only playing part time. They've got jobs outside of this. It's not their full-time gig. And when stuff is constantly getting chopped and changed, there's no consistency. Um, it's not fair on them. Like at the end of the day, you know, the word from a lot of them is that they're okay with it because all they want to do is play. Like it's their dream to play. They want to be out there. They want to be playing. Um, but I just think when you look at it, it's just, it's not fair. And you just go, the AFL have the ability to make it right, make it more accessible for people, make it a spectacle, have casual fans get right into it. Like all of the puzzle pieces are there, they're just not aligning at the moment. So I do hope that they, work to strengthen the weaknesses over the next couple of years because yeah, we expanded probably quicker than we should have. And the little holes are starting to open up, and it's, people, when it comes to AFLW, people are always going to focus on the negatives. You know, people that don't really watch it, they focus on the negatives. They don't look at all the positives. And like, North Melbourne, undefeated season, like win the premiership, all this, that. They don't look at like Ebony Marinoff's stats that are just really impressive and win her the BNF. They don't look at those things. They look at the fact that, oh, a team didn't kick a goal in a whole game or something like that. So, you know, I think it's disappointing, but I do hope that they'll do what they can over the next couple of years to make it right. But this is the AFL we're talking about, and I've got a comment about a team. I had a good chat with Alex Doherty today,
Mhm.
Donny, and we were having a little chat about the most disappointing team, and a little red and white team came up.
That's fine. Hey, I completely get it. If you look at the way the season went last year and you look at this year, I completely understand it. You will not hurt my
I know.
feelings. Please
Yeah,
go away.
yeah. So, obviously finals last year, bottom four finish this year, but as the season showed, a lot of injuries to a lot of key players can really impact a team, and I think that's where the downfall of the Swans was this season. But I just had to bring that up.
It's perfect. It's perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. I'm gonna heap on here a little bit too, but I'm gonna go a little bit further. How to say this? The AFLW is unfortunately going to continue to be seen as less than, as long as the AFL House continue to do what they continue to do. The reason they are that my biggest disappointment is because there's a ton of positive momentum in this competition. There's tons of positive momentum. Fan bases are growing. Fan support is growing. The problem is that the AFL House continue to be like, well, we really don't care, because every time they have a chance to show that they genuinely want this competition to grow, they find the nearest low hanging branch and run forehead straight into it. I swear every single time that they do this. Or it's kind of like that meme of a bunch of rakes and then somebody walking around continuing to step on it and getting hit in the face. Like that's the
Yeah,
way AFL House is handling this. As Marnie said, horrible game times. You pick game times that are not convenient for fan bases. You also pick venues that are small and are not getting sold out. You're continuing to find ways to bugger this up. And I think that's very, very frustrating. Do I want to see bigger venues? Yes. Do I think that the league has enough fans to really make it worth it? That's where the question is. Do they want to see sellouts of every single game? Absolutely. Are they doing everything to make sure that's happening? Absolutely not. And then my biggest pet peeve this year, the condensed fixture was atrocious, because you could tell the teams that had to play two games because their second game was crap. No matter what the team was, the second game was crap because they were tired, because they didn't get as much recovery, and you could tell scoring was down in that second game purely on the fact that these girls are exhausted because they put everything into every single game. They can't do it. The condensed fixture cannot happen again. I understand that an extra week isn't easy, especially when you're trying to kind of, shall we say, wedge it in after the men's season. And unfortunately, you do have that fact where there's some people that are footied out because the men's season, for some weird reason, continues to grow. Yet the women's can't get 17 in, which
yeah,
is, again, the other absolutely infuriating part about this whole thing is that they continue to add rounds for the men, and the men are screaming out, we want less games. And the women want more games, yet they continue to become no, 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 no. Like, and it's
Mm.
very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. Like I've said this a couple of times in the podcast. There's a utopian way that I think this would all work. It's never going to happen. But I think both the men's and the women should be 18 games. Both. You play every team once and you play your rivals twice. So for like you, Jade, you would get the showdown for both the men and the women twice.
Hmm. Yep.
You would get your Western derbies, you'd get your Q clashes, you'd get your Sydney derbies, you'd get your Carlton, Collingwoods, you'd get that, okay? And it would be perfect. Why? Because it would shrink the men's game season by 6 games, which then you throw those 6 games onto the 11 games the women already have. You already have 17. You maybe have to flex maybe a week or two earlier for the men if you continue to play them March to through that. It would throw off again. You wouldn't have the last week in September or first week in October for the grand final. It'd be earlier, but it would even everything out for both
Hmm.
competitions, and it would be exactly the same. You would still maybe fight a little bit with cricket when it comes to the women's if you kept the women's were kind of in the time frame that it is, but that would work, and you would still have all of that footy content during that entire time.
Hmm.
Again, I know this will never happen, but that's my perfect option to where it would get the women more games to get them to 18 games, and it would get the men that, hey, we're going to take a little bit of off your plates a little bit because it isn't easy playing 22, 23 games in the season. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Again, my biggest disappointment is AFL House continuing to take what I think is a fantastic competition that could grow and really, really help out. And they continue to just find ways to bugger it up. And it's just very, very, very frustrating. So we will take my soapbox, toss it over back into the corner again. Let's have some fun. Let's talk some good things. Biggest surprise. Jade, we'll start with you. Biggest surprise the AFLW season. Team, player, who is that?
Yeah, for me, I think it's Port, as I mentioned earlier. Like, just a um, very good second half of the season for them. Um, Coming in the last, kind of expansion of the league as well. Um, you know, set up with a lot of talent, been able to get a lot of talent, brought in the, seasoned players that have been able to really make an impact on the side. But yeah, it just when you look at their record halfway through the season, they were 1-4. So, you wouldn't have expected them to make it to a prelim when you look at that, in a season that's only, 10 weeks. So yeah, they were the biggest win, most wholesome thing for me in the league this year.
Marty, biggest surprise.
I'll keep it North centric because we did win a premiership after all. Maybe not a surprise, but I'll mention Sarah Wright. So there was an article that was released on the North website in the lead up to the preliminary final that revealed that Sarah Wright actually was going to retire at the end of last season. Um, she's just on 30, but she sort of thought, no, I think I'm content, like I'm happy with where I'm at and I'm ready to give it up. And she sat on the decision for a lot of the off season and actually ended up deciding sort of in the 11th hour that she would come back for this season because she decided, no, maybe I actually do want to win a premiership. Not only did she end up winning a premiership, and not only was she one of our best players on the day, her season overall has been just about flawless. She's been outstanding, and she's actually playing on again next season now. So it's been awesome for North. And I think just learning that story from her, and then the way that she was able to perform this season, get her premiership medal, and then commit to going around again next season is just an awesome win for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I saw that article and thought that was magnificent writing. It is it's kind of crazy to think that she was this far away from being on the sidelines instead
Yeah,
of
I'm glad she
out
didn't
in
make that
out
mistake.
in uniform for sure. For me, I'm gonna go only because if you look at the season before, I'm gonna say Hawthorne, and that's only because when you hire a new coach, it's not always guaranteed that they're going to have success. And Port Adelaide, they didn't surprise me because I thought with the infusion of the young talent that they did, I knew they would go up. Did I think they would make finals? Not so much. But for Hawthorn to jump from bottom four to top two, again, a little bit because of the fixture, was incredible. They were on this high again. They kind of became everybody's second team because they were so much fun to watch. They were this entertaining group. They played fast, quick, exciting football. They kicked the ball well. They used their speed, their run. They were so much fun to watch. And I know for some people, especially in Victoria, it got a little annoying after a while. Hawkball got annoying because it was almost brazen a little bit. But I have to say, Hawthorne's ascension like a rocket up the competition was my biggest surprise. Port didn't surprise me more just because again, I had seen a lot of these youngsters in the AFLW and thought they're getting a ton of talent at the right time. The question was, could they gel? So for me, it was Hawthorne. Port close. So, all right. After biggest surprise, I love talking about this, and Jade already kind of said hers. Game of the year. What's the one game that you're going to go back during this off season and make sure and watch again? So, Marnie, we'll start with you. Game of the year.
The grand final, obviously. Come on, guys.
I knew that was coming. I teed that one up perfectly.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all you need. North Melbourne supporter, die hard North Melbourne supporter, a winning premiership. Nothing's going to get better than that on my end.
Her blue and white glasses are obvious as all get out.
They're always on. They're always on. You guys know
There's
that.
there is nothing wrong with that at all, Marty. All right, Jade. Again, we'll say it again. Are you going to stay with it? Is it the Hawthorn v Port Adelaide
Yeah, I'm
elimination
gonna
final?
say that. Yeah, I think for me that's more than likely the game of the year. But a special mention to the Giants and Suns game that was a draw after the siren. I think that's just it's just a spectacle because you just kind of go like, one, I love a draw because everyone's just kind of like, oh well, what just happened? Like if your team's
What do we do
down,
now?
then you're probably like happy, but if your team is like was like up, then you're probably like a little bit peeved off. Um, so yeah, I do love a good, a kick for a draw, celebrate the kick, and yeah, so that'll be my second one.
See, and for me, I went through it because I have several again. The fact that I review is that you kind of have to remember. And there was a couple of games that stuck out to me. One is in the second game of the season, and that is Richmond versus West Coast. Daisy Pierce's first ever game coaching, and her girls get a 1 point win over Richmond, again, a team that makes finals later on in the year. An absolutely incredible game. Seeing Daisy Pierce's smile at the end of the game when her entire coaching box is going nuts. They pulled off the win, and Daisy, just cool as a cucumber, gives the high five. It was fantastic to see. But for me, game of the year had to be round 10, second to last game. Port Adelaide survive a scare by the Giants and get a 1 point win. Gemma Houghton burying that 30-meter free kick to win the game for Port Adelaide to guarantee them finals. An incredibly fun game to watch. A little frightening if you're a Port Adelaide supporter because this is a Giants team that was severely underperforming compared to what they probably should have. And for Port to get the win, to guarantee them in the finals and kind of kickstart their finals off with a little bit of momentum. There were some incredible games, as Jade said. I'm with you. I love the draws. Some of these draws were fantastic this year. There were some 1 point thrillers, including a few against me. Essendon got a 1 point thriller over the Swans. The Suns had a comeback win with which ended up being their first win of the season against the Swans this year. There was a ton of great games, but for me, it's Port Adelaide v GWS, round 10, the second to last game, 1 point win by the Port Adelaide Power was the game of the year for me. So before we get out of here, one last one. I want you to grab your crystal balls. I want you to look into next season already, 2025. Who's your team to watch? Who's the team that you're going to keep an eye on? Now, I'm going to make this caveat. You cannot pick your team. I know it's not easy. I'm sorry, Marnie. I'm sorry, Jade. You cannot pick your team. Jade, we'll start with you. Who's the team to watch in the AFLW next year that is not the Adelaide Crows?
Donny, I'm gonna go with the Swans. I think if they can keep their key players fit, I think this season was just a lapse in the wave for them. So I think the Swans are going to be back with a vengeance. I think they'll be up there, and when they've got their best players on the park, um, yeah, they're hard to beat. So that's who I'm going to go with.
Oh, I sure hope you're right. I sure hope you're right. As
You've got
the
to
Swans,
predict it. You've got to predict it in your preseason predictions, okay? And then it
we'll
will probably
definitely
happen.
we'll definitely have to
True.
see. All right, Marty. I know this isn't easy with your blue and white glasses. Who's a team next year in 2025 you're going to keep an eye on?
I think Fremantle. Fremantle's a sneaky one. Like I said earlier, they usually fly under the radar, being all the way over across the Nullarbor. But they've always sort of been around the mark. They've got great leadership there, and they've really got a great program. Both their men and women's team. I think they sometimes are victim of themselves and underperform and sort of shoot themselves in the foot. But I think we know what Fremantle are capable of, and I think that now's as good a time as any for them to pull the trigger. So that'd be my pick to watch for next season.
Alrighty, and this is interesting because I've actually got two, and for two
Ooh.
completely different reasons. We'll start off my first one is more of because of how they finished this year, but I don't think it was a full indicator, and that's Geelong. Because this was a Geelong Cats team that, if we're being 100% honest, probably should have made finals. They were a good enough finals
Mhm.
team. They had wins over finals teams and didn't make the finals, but it was purely because of their fixture this year. They had a really tough fixture, played a lot of finals teams in their season, and just fell short in a couple of them. So for me, the Cats probably a little bit easier fixture next year. Watch out for the Cats. There's a lot of positivity coming out down there, down south of Melbourne. And the other one, and just because I loved the improvement this year that she brought at the helm, and that is West Coast. I love what Daisy's doing at West Coast. I think if they can retain a lot of their talent, bring in a couple of young talented players into this team, this West Coast team under Daisy's tutelage, it's going to be fun to watch. They're definitely a team I cannot wait to see going next season. So, ladies, that is it. That is the 2024 season complete. Again, another magnificent season. It is so much fun. It is bittersweet, these moments, at the end of the year, these last ones, because you hate the end of the footy season. I know the cricket is already getting started over in Australia now, which I will definitely keep an eye on. But these cold winter months up here in the States are not easy sometimes with no footy to kind of entertain me. So it'll be fun. So Marnie, with Kanga TV, I got to jump right to it. You popped off with Kanga TV. It is going fantastic. How are things at Kanga TV? I know they're growing like a weed. Anything coming up very soon that we need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, it's been almost 2 months now, about a week and a half off 2 months, and it's yeah, just I thought maybe it would do well. I didn't know if it would go quite as well as it has, so I'm very humbled and yeah, just really riding the wave. I'm hoping to release the first documentary on the channel before the end of the year, so keep your eye out for that. It's very interesting, a little take that I've sort of picked out. And it's sort of a change of script. I won't give too much away. But yeah, more interviews coming with some key North Melbourne people, and a little bit of a look already into next season, which is crazy to think we're not even finished 2024. I'm already starting to delve into 2025, but footy nuffy, so don't expect anything less, I guess.
There's nothing wrong with that. I know I'm already getting ready for something that I'm doing here on the channel. I'll discuss it just a little bit. Jade, I know you are on the mend. I know that you've had a few issues there. Hopefully everything is going well again. It's great to see you again. I miss you on the Project podcast, but I understand that again, sometimes life just doesn't always go perfectly.
Yes, that's it. I do miss my little podcasting each week to have, a little yap about my footy team, but I'm sure I'll be around throughout the season. Um and I'll pop up in little bits and bobs. So I managed to get on a few friends like YouTubes and like come on with you when I can, um, and all that. So yes, I'm sure you'll still see me around, still yapping about the Crows as always. You can't Can't knock me down from that.
There's
Can't keep
nothing.
a good yapper down.
That's it. That's it.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoy having you two on. I know the first time we had it, it was a ball, so I had to be sure that I got you two on again this year, at least one more time. It was always magnificent. So, and to go off as I kind of somewhat started, I will be doing an off-season supporter series again this year, but this year I'm doing something a little bit fun. I'm doing an international slash Americans series. So I've got some American friends, some international friends that we're going to talk about their love of their club, which is so much fun because I know that for many Aussies, it's not always it's hard to find people outside of Oz that are huge fans of the club. I know I'm an oddball. I'm different.
Yeah,
So
you said it.
I've got a few lined up. I'm still working on it, but I cannot wait. That will be so. This off-season supporter series will be American and international. So hopefully, as long as everything works out well, I'm going to try to get a fan of each of your clubs to talk about their love and how they fell in love, not only with the sport of footy, but why they love the club that they do. So keep an eye out on that. That will be over the off
Can't
season,
wait.
hoping to get the first few out in December and then January and February to get us through the long off season before we get started with the men's season in March. And as per usual, we'll do that. I also have the AFLW draft and free agency period, which the free agency and trade period gets started here in less than 24 hours. I cannot wait. The rumors are flying fast and heavy. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I know less than a week after the grand final, and we're already talking about players moving teams. So much fun. So, that was what on the channel here. Hopefully, we will enjoy that. So, again, Marnie, Jade, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. Always fantastic to catch up with you, magnificent human beings. That is going to do it for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you like, please like and subscribe. And again, if you're a North Melbourne supporter and catching this out, please go over and hop on to Kanga TV. Definitely worth the watch. So that'll do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. We'll be back very, very soon with more footy coverage in your ears.